Let me tell you what we were wearing between 1910 and 1920. The years between 1902 and 1908 marked an era of great reform. Many countries enacted laws to improve the conditions under which people lived and worked. Child labour laws were strengthened and new ones adopted, raising age limits, shortening work hours, restricting night work, and requiring school attendance. People were being freed from poverty and were able to have choice, money, and benefit from the Industrial Revolution. The one thing they spent their money on was clothes. Clothing and fashion was revolutionized by the humble sewing machine. Until the 19th century, virtually all clothes were made at home. Ready to wear. Men's clothes were the first to be mass-produced at the beginning of the 19th century. The first widely available ready-to-wear garment for women was the shirtwaist, a blouse that was worn with a long flowing skirt. For bread in 1910 was 7 cents. 12 eggs cost 14 cents, a pint of milk 4 cents, and a Model T car cost $900. Wages in 1910. The average wage in the United States was $300 a year for men. The average wage for women was around $200 a year. In 1910, a shirtwaist woman's shirt cost around $1. A woman's dress cost about $10. Women's shoes around $2 to $3. A knitted hose cost about 35 cents. A man would probably spend about $10 on his suit. A dress shirt would cost about $1, a top coat $7 to $10, and a felt hat around 45 cents. In 1910, fashion for women was typified by fluid, soft outlines, big hats, and short hair. Women wore a tunic over a long skirt, which were widest at the hip and narrowest at the ankle. Many women wore long dresses and outrageous hats at that time. Knitted hose was also worn. For the well-to-do, these were the kind of ball gowns you could buy if you could afford it. Most women wore lace-up boots, either black or brown, for many years, but at the turn of the century, women began to demand more choice and glamour. So, enter the high-heel colored shoe, the Mary Jane. And then the evening shoe, followed by the Titanic shoe, which added glamour to a woman's wardrobe. Suits were very popular at this time. Trousers were worn at ankle level and had turn-ups. The Norfolk jacket was very popular for outdoors men. The blazer was the most common jacket for casual wear. Collars on formal shirts were high and very stiff. Men's formal wear was black tail coat, consisting of a black tailcoat with striped formal trousers, a white bib front with wig collars and a bow tie and a waistcoat. Black patent slip-on shoes were the best formal shoe. White gloves and a top hat were the finishing touches. Women's work clothes normally consisted of the cheapest shirts and skirts available, usually in black and white. Men wore dungarees and hand-me-downs for work. Younger boys wore short pants, usually with long stockings. Older boys wore knicker suits. The Norfolk jacket were very popular with boys. 1910 was the first time that children were seen wearing clothes that were not complete replicas of those of adults. New children's clothing allowed more movement and less restriction. However, girls were still wearing dresses with drop waists and pleated skirts. Dressing a man in 1910 during the Edwardian fashion era was not very different from today. Men's Edwardian fashion including suits during the day, formal tailcoat for evening, and slightly more casual attire for the sporting events. The look showcased youth with slimmed down suits, colours compared to the oversized and bland fashions of the previous decade. The period of 1910 to 1912 was called the Titanic or pre-war era. This saw the end of the Edwardian period. It heralded a decade of very soft, feminine fashions with flowing train skirts, ruffles and lace, and S-bend corseted silhouette. Fabrics were silk, satin, brocade, lace and chiffon. The suffragettes. The suffragette movement started in 1903 in the UK. The demand for universal suffrage spread throughout the world, which eventually led to women gaining the vote by the 1920s in many countries. The suffragette movement used clothes to further their cause by holding fashion parades. White became the symbol of resistance of the suffragette movement. Green and purple became the tricolour symbol of the women's social and political movement. Women were encouraged to attend rallies in these colours or plain white to show solidarity with the movement. 1914 and the world goes to war. During World War I, as men went off to fight, women took on jobs formerly filled by men. A new image of freedom and self-respect led women away from traditional gender roles. As women dressed for their new roles, gender-dictated dress codes relaxed. As fashion adapted to war, higher hemlines and looser fit meant ease of movement and more flexibility for the new work women were expected to undertake. Many of the occupations demanded the wearing of uniform, including trousers. A military look crept into fashion designs as well, bringing military-style tunic jackets, belts and epaulets. During World War I, people took to a plainer lifestyle. Women wore less jewellery, and the lavish clothing of the Edwardian period fell by the wayside. Although the Edwardian era was over in 1914, it began with a strong silhouette. Women wore lacy shirtwaists and long, narrow skirts that fell to the top of the foot. In 1915, higher hemlines exposed a gap between the tip of the boot and the skirt hem. High-button boots of the past were abandoned, and women wore shoes with heels that featured a slight curve. (1916) The wartime crinoline, as fashion was quickly dubbed, was a very full calf-length skirt, and ladies went mad for this new style. The style prompted harsh denunciations because of the improper length. The favourite slogan of 1916 was "The war is long, but the skirts are short." Also in 1916, most daytime clothing and hats avoided extravagant ornamentation. Too much frou-frou was unpatriotic in wartime. The fashion was very much frilled evening clothes aimed at youthful feminine silhouette with natural waistlines, fitted bust and a wide skirt. The Great War also introduced a new coat style that became a classic for the rest of the century and beyond, the trench coat. The new military style coat created a wide collar, extra fabric at the top of the back, epaulets and a belt. Great emphasis was put upon shape. Corsets were not totally abandoned, but given greater flexibility for comfort. The Spirella corset offered a greater range of movement than the old-fashioned type, and purported to improve posture for the benefit of overall health. Your Spirella corset would be fitted to your individual measurements. Waist size was only one of them. 11 measurements in all were taken. It's not enough to know your waist measurement and that you are slender, medium, or well developed. By 1917, casual styles were coming into their own, with bare arms coming into fashion. High-neck collars disappeared in favour of square and V necklines. Darker colours and simpler cuts became the norm, and a new monochrome look emerged. "1918 saw the introduction of skirts, blouses and sweaters. Details such as white side buttons, large pockets and wide gathered waistbands matched those of dresses. The skirt sat high on the waist, in which a blouse or shirtwaist was tucked into and billowed out slightly. "1919 and the war is over. For women, fashion was looser with shorter hemlines and widths that were full but required only one light petticoat. Sleeves were long but narrow with wide collars and sashes, big pockets and contrasting buttons. In 1920, the world was getting back to normal. Casual sporting attire was introduced in the 1920s. In addition to bathing suits, tennis uniforms, golfing outfits, simple comfortable skirts, sailor blouses and large brim hats were worn by women. Then into the roaring 20s. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. Our next video will be out soon, and that will be what we were wearing between 1920 and 1930.